Porsche. Hello, fellow druids. It's been a bit. I took a week of not recording and kind of being chill about War Machine, to be honest, and I think it was good. But today, on this episode, what I want to do is talk about a tournament that I went to this past weekend. Also, for those of you who like it, you'll note there's a doggo right there. She'll be going on a walk shortly. Yeah, so I didn't actually do a video on this. I'm not going to. The weekend, the second weekend of August, I went to a tournament at my local shop, the Dice Dojo, Chicagoland Games, and I took kind of the usuals. I took Kruger 2 and Bradigus. You know, everybody's kind of go-to. We'll talk a little bit more about that in another video probably, but took them, and I went 2-1. I was a little disappointed losing my last game to admittedly a very good player, but somebody who doesn't really play anymore. I was just not prepared for the style of list they brought, which was Axis with a bajillion dudes. More Sorsha right there. And in general, I've been kind of, I know I'm probably not alone here, but I've been kind of about the fact that it feels like double bones is what we have to play. Individually, the bones lists have, I actually find the Bradigus list interesting on its own. I find the Kruger list is very strong and interesting to a degree on its own. But like every time I think about playing and bringing those lists, I just have not been inspired. It's maybe not, a lot of folks I know got into the faction for the living beasts. I actually like all of the things. That's why I was sort of saying that I think the wolves are decent. I'm really glad that they're good for some of the first times in the history of our faction. But it just at the moment was not working for me. It didn't fit right. Wasn't having fun with it. Wasn't having fun thinking about it, or really I didn't really think like that I was doing anything about it. So I sort of was like, well, maybe I'll just chill for a little bit. Maybe I just need some some space to sort of think, let it sort of simmer out and feel where it's going and everything. And then I was sort of like, you know what? I'm just going to switch it up, and I'm going to go up to the Milwaukee tournament, and I'm going to take some stuff that I haven't played in a while, and in one case a list I've never played, and screw it, we'll just see how I do. I'm going to try to have a fun event. I'm going to try to do my best, but mostly I'm focused on just mixing it up, seeing how some other stuff plays, seeing what I learn, and how I feel about it and stuff. So the first list I decided ahead of time that I was going to play was hashtag Kruger Hill. Thank you again, Colin Hill. This was like a 2-year-old list at this point, or no, 1.5 years old. I've talked a lot about it on this show, but not for a little bit. But yeah, hashtag Kruger Hill. We'll talk about that list in a second. And then I decided I was going to bring a new list. So basically, I knew I wanted to back up whatever I was playing with something that could crack armor. And I thought about just leaving the Bradigus list in the pair, but then I thought maybe what would make the most sense. Sorry, Sorsha's being kind of a nutter butter. They're going for a walk because if you can't tell, she has a lot of energy. But I decided. So I was looking at that. I was looking at like, well, maybe I can play my Chromite 2 list that I played a little bit. I like that list. It's a lot of fun. I was like, maybe I can play an Una list in Call of the Wild because I don't think the version with the Wolf Riders pairs as well with the Kruger 1 list I was bringing. And then the last list, I was like, you know what? I actually have a bunch of satyrs. Maybe I'll try out Kaya 3. And I sort of was flip-flopping. Am I going to do Shadowhorns, or am I going to do Normal Horns? They both have merit. They both play a little bit differently. I opted for Shadowhorns. So that list I decided to try out Thursday night at our GameStop here, GameStorm down in Lamont, and it went okay. The competitive level of that shop is so is all, but I mostly was trying to get a sense for how the list played and its advantages and how I had to position and etc. So that list, just to go over it real quick, is 4 Shadowhorn Satyrs, 2 Warpwolf Stalkers, a Wild Argus, a Gorax, 1 unit of Shifting Stones with the Stonekeeper, 2 Blackcloud Wayfarers, and I went with Lord of the Feasts as my 3rd free solo. Or, yeah, I got the Shifting Stones for free, so I paid for the Stonekeeper. The first iteration did not have a Stonekeeper. It had a Gallows Grove and had a 2nd unit of Shifting Stones, and immediately the extra Shifting Stones were not really doing a lot for me in the list. Yeah, anyway, so the shift right away was to that. I would not call this list tuned. That small tune was good. So far, I'm not sure that I would call it tuned. Anyway, so I took Kaya 3. And then the other list was hashtag Kruger Hill, which is what I call it. But just real quick, the list is Getrix Gorax for the battle group. Kruger 1, Getrix Gorax for the battle group. Death Wolves, 2 full units of Tharn Ravagers with Chieftains. 2 full units of Tharn Bloodweavers. 2 Tharn Ravager Shamans, 1 Tharn Ravager Whitebane, and 2 Bloodweaver Night Witches. And what this list does is super resilient to shooting, the vast majority of shooting, because everything in the army can become at least defense 16 before terrain modifiers. And then I also have a pretty phenomenal amount of infantry removal. I have a few other little things that the list does. Kruger himself is very unkillable. He has the ability to be defense 20 just from spell, defense 20 with 1 transfer, as well as adding terrain to that, right? So if you can find a hill or cover against shooting, you're going to be like defense 22, and even against other stuff, you can be pretty high defense. So and I guess theoretically you could use Spiny Growth, but I think he's like a 15-14, so you're better off getting more defense. So this is really resilient to shooting. I sort of considered playing that same list with like Morvana 1 or Morvana 2. I've tried a variant of it with Baldur 1, which should be good, but it just never, I never quite like how it plays. I might be able to play something similar with Wormwood, but the problem there is I have some like weirdness on, excuse me, on how the I need Shifting Stones in the list, which then changes the number of corpses I get. I've seen a variation of this with the Cauldron as well, but I didn't really like what I would lose for it, because I wanted the Veteran Leader, and I wanted all the units, and I wanted all the solos, and yeah. So that's what I went with. Made the drive up. Round 1, so I think it was 18 players, so we had a chance to split first place, but unlikely because of the way the pair downs work. So 18 players, pretty decent spread of factions as I recall, but I'm not exactly sure. And round 1, I get paired up against Adam. He's actually the shop manager up there. Great guy. Always a lot of fun to hear his thoughts on games and whatnot and catch up with him. He plays a lot of games, so I know he doesn't necessarily consider himself to be the most tip-top of War Machine players, but he's certainly no slouch either, in my opinion. I think he ended up getting, I think he ended up going 3-1 at this event, actually. So, but let's talk about that one. So, he had the child, and he had a, he had the child in Dark Menagerie, and he had a bump list with, I think, King of Nothing. I definitely use some intuition. So this is a trick that you can use if somebody's really cagey. I've never seen this happen. They might catch you with this, but I could see what he was getting out of his bag. And this is why you should never start moving stuff around until you've revealed your list, unless it's pretty obvious what you're playing or you don't care if they know. But I saw him start getting Skin and Moans out of his list and the child out of his list, and I'm like, well, you're going to play child. So I felt like even with without that knowledge, I was sort of oscillating between do I play Kaya or do I play Kruger. The interesting thing was his child list did not have a death knell. He said he felt like just taking another heavy made sense to him. I don't know that I personally agree, but that's fine. He opted to go that route. So what me thinking the child was likely, I felt like Kaya 3 was going to be the one that would have the threat range and the damage to handle that. His other list had a lot of infantry, and I felt like I would have enough with my sprays and Lord of the Feast and the Stalkers that I probably could stay alive there. I think even with the other list, I would have been much more advantaged playing Kruger, although if it was, I believe it was King of Nothing. If that's the case, is Cloud Tech. If I do drop Kruger, is really bad because I'm just going to cast Gale Winds and it's going to go away, and then I'm going to kill all of it. Like everything he loves. So I probably could have played either list, but I also felt like I would more likely play the Kruger list later, and I wanted to make sure I played a game with Kaya, so I threw that down. I went first, won the die roll, ran up the table. One of the things with her list that you can do is it's actually better for the Shadowhorns to walk, jump, and reposition. They move 14 inches when you do that, rather than running 12. So I did that. I was up the table a long ways. I think he didn't really quite know what to expect, so he sort of, I would say about half of his beasts kind of just ran at me. This was on invasion, so I was mostly trying to make sure that I could just contest the circles. I didn't really have enough units to do anything else. Score the rectangle. And what resulted here is that he moved up pretty far. He moved up some of his stuff pretty far. And looking at it, I had the Pathfinder objective, so I could. That's one change that I'm really looking forward to with our CID is just Pathfinder on our beasts, because it's nonsense that we don't have it, and just like it made a huge difference being able to get Pathfinder where I needed it. So Pathfinder objective helped. He ran up quite a ways. I was able to. I primaled one Shadowhorn that turn, but basically I was able to kill, I think, 2 of his heavies, 1 of his rattlers, and really messed up another rattler, something like that. And was pretty clear of the zone, and most of his army was going to have to try to get to me pretty hard. I might have killed a Gremlin Storm or something in there too. I didn't even feel... I don't think I feeded there. Anyways, that's what happened. And then he tried to trade... I made sure to keep Kaya safe. He tried to trade back into me with his Skin and Bones into the heavies. My dice were absurdly good this game, too. Like, there was a turn where I don't think I rolled below a 9 on a damage roll. On 2 dice. And yeah, so, like, he comes into me... Again, trying to kill something. I think he got the 1 primaled Shadowhorn after all that. He probably should have been able to get a little bit more than that. And then in return, I killed basically the rest of his beasts pretty effectively. And then he called it at that point because his attrition game was so low. So that was a win for the first round. Going into the second round, I got paired up against Ethan. He's a Minions player. He's actually, congratulations to him, he qualified for War Machine Weekend at an event in Minnesota. He was testing some stuff out. He had Rask and Arcadius instead of, he was normally playing Arcadius and Malak. I sort of went back and forth on what to play. I felt like I probably could have played either list, but what I was thinking was Rask's feat was really bad for the list that needed to charge to do work. So my Warbeasts don't need to charge to do work. My Ravagers do need to charge to do work. So I probably could have still played it because I had enough infantry there that I think I could have sort of played cagey and not given, I could give up less with infantry than if I'm using mostly beasts. But I felt like I could play Kaya in either case if I played carefully. So I went with Kaya, and he went with Arcadius. I won the roll to go first, so I pretty aggressively moved up the tables I did before. He moved up, measured out all my threat ranges, made sure to stay out of them. Now, I was already in the zone. This one was Championship Brawl. Breakdown, I think that one's called. Or is that the Pit? I think that's the Pit, actually. I think I keep getting those backwards. Anyways, so I'm already in this zone, and I'm going first, so I don't get to score yet, but he's measured out to stay away from me. I'm using Lord of the Feast to sort of like set up to contest over by Russian Brian. They're over on his... No, this was Mirage. I'm sorry. Nope, wrong hand. Spread the net. Spread the net. So I'm using Lord of the Feast to make sure that I'll be able to contest Rorsch on the flag, over on his flag. I did put a Black Cloud Wafer on my flag, but I should have, if I was going to do that, I should have spaced it such that if he sprayed it with Scareth, that my Stalker would get Scareth in return, and I did not do that. So that was a mistake on my part. I kind of just gave him a Wayfarer I didn't need to. I could have waited a turn, just kept him safe, not scored the flag, and I would have been able to score it faster later. That's fine. So I'm trying to get the circle zone. Kaya's towing the back of it. I put there's a wall kind of on the rectangle on the other side and into the circle. So I'm trying to position basically so that my battle group, I use my shifting stones in front of it, and then put my battle group like towing the back of the zone. So if he does step into the zone, I'm gonna be able to start trading, and hopefully favorably for me. And if he doesn't, and because he out-threatens me, right? So I know he's going to come and try to get me. And then, so I'm set up to where I'm hopefully going to score my rectangle, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to score his if he doesn't kill my guy with the flag, blah, blah, blah. So what he does do is just runs one of the 2 Swamp Gobbers he has into the zone to contest. And I'm like, okay, well, that's annoying, but I don't get to score. That's fine, but that's all he's got there. I should just be able to kill it. I'll use Rock Hammer first. That failed. Kaya needed a boosted 9. She missed, so I actually wasn't really able to clear that zone. I did run an Argus to stop him from scoring his rectangle. I put my Wayfarer... no, I was too far away. The other Wayfarer was too far away. So I just repositioned him sort of centrally. Lord of the Feast, I think, charged in on Rorsch here just to get in the mix. He actually had failed to kill Lord of the Feast with after giving Isle of Sight to Rorsch and trying to shoot. Pardon. And yeah, so I score a couple points there. I did not feat. I definitely debated it because I'm thinking he probably has to come in now, but I think with my spacing and whatever that I still can get in there. He's got to kill these shifting stones. That's going to be annoying, and et cetera, et cetera. So he does feat. He does get in there. He kills all 4. His battle group goes in. Scareth kills the Wild Argus. I expected that. His battle group goes in. He kills 2 Shadowhorns. Lord of the Feast lives another turn, I believe. Kaya's fine the whole time. And so there he is in front of me. And he's got, now he's got his beast in the zone. The Gobber's still in the zone. Yeah, the Gobber's still in the zone. So, so what I do, basically the next turn, even with what I had, so this is one of the few times I was actually able to get my Gorax into the mix. I'm able to use my feet to make sure that I can dig. He kept one Warhog actually back at the back of the zone when he realized he wasn't going to have a good place for it to land, to contest, but as it was, the one of the Shadowhorns he killed, I could have just walk and jumped to Arcadius to get there, and Guardian Beast wasn't really going to make much difference. Well, it might have actually in that case, but that's why he kept one beast back. So I move up, jump. Basically, my 2 Shadowhorns, my 2 Stalkers, Kaya, and the Gorax, all combined, managed to kill his entire battle group and Scareth. That turn, I'm contesting everything. I do score I'm scoring the circle. I'm scoring my rectangle. I score my flag, and at that point, I'm just sort of trickle that into a scenario victory. So, just a pro tip there. I think I've talked about this in my shifting stone video, but something as a circle player you should absolutely remember, especially in some of these like Call to Wild lists where you don't have a lot of spare models. If you're out threatened, use your shifting stones to make life miserable for them. Like, if they want to come in, make them have to kill shifting stones to get to your beasts, because they're not easy to kill. And if they have to, especially if it's like a heavy on heavy fight, make them waste attacks on your shifting stones, because they're not in a melee fight. They're not going to help you like dig deeper, right? Like you're just not getting. You're not going to be getting like into. The place effect is not going to get you far enough to really matter whatsoever, right? So one of the things you use them for is like to port Kaya forward and stuff. But in a lot of these matchups, like Legion's a good example, Dr. Arcadius is an excellent example. Like put them in a position where hopefully they still have to charge to get to the shifting stones, and put your guys behind it and try to get into the zone when you do this, of course. But put those forward. Put your guys like 2 inches behind them, especially against minions because they have overtake. So even if they have to use Dr. Arcadius's frenzy, and preferably if you can do it so that when they charge off the frenzy, they're still too far away. Like you want to be at like 10 inches basically. Now they've got to like go up. Something's got to kill those stones. There's not a ton of guns in that list, et cetera, et cetera. Like you can put these things up there and that's going to be really strong for you actually. So that's a tip for everybody to kind of take away from this game. Anyway, so I win that game. Round 3, I'm paired up against Austin. He's playing Kador. He's got Vlad 2 in the Doom Reaver theme that I can't remember. Wolves of Winter? Sounds right. And he has what was his list? Butcher 1 with the 4 battle engines in the Manowar theme. And this is an interesting problem. So I don't love the idea of playing Kruger into all the battle engines. I can crack armor, but it's going to be such a slog. And may not end up well for me because he's got a lot of high explosive. Doesn't have to hit directly for a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of accuracy, even probably not enough with the tankers, but anyways, a lot of stuff in there. He probably could kill Getorix kind of when he wants to because of the damage. So I'm not loving that matchup, but the Vlad matchup is he's got a Victor in it, but aside from that, it's like a slam dunk. I think it's a slam dunk win because I don't have to directly target for stuff. I just have so many dudes that like Doom Reavers can kill a decent amount of dudes, but eventually they're gonna miss, and they don't really have any extra movement. And I'm just gonna kill them between Electro Leaps and all of my dudes and Death Wolves, and like I can still kill the Victor when I need to. The scenario is standoff. But again, so this is one of the first times I have real list chicken, and I'm sort of thinking like, well, the Kruger list into Butcher feels worse than the Kaya list into Vlad, because I have the Stalkers, I still have a decent number of attacks, I have a feat, and he doesn't have a lot of ways to hit me. I forgot Flare actually is on the Victor, and the Victor's nonsense. I have no idea why that model has a range 20 gun that is accurate or not inaccurate, but be that as it may. Yeah, so, but I do realize that Vlad can kind of feat, and I probably can't do much about it, and I'm going to lose some stuff, so I have to be able to play around that. This game ended up being extremely grindy, I definitely had some dice not work out for me, which was unfortunate. At one point, Shadowhorn lost a strength check to throw a Doom Reaver, which was basically I had to roll Snake Eyes and he had to roll 6 on one die. So I don't know what the odds are of that. I guess it's the same of roll. It's technically the same as rolling 666s. So because there's only one outcome, and that's literally the only outcome that could happen. So yep. So that happened. But I'm kind of slogging back and forth. We're starting to score. I'm able to score my zone. I kill his objective somewhere in there. He kills my... No, did he? Yeah, he killed my... No, he did not. He did not kill my objective throughout the game. I'm sort of losing the flank on my right. He's losing the flank on my left. But obviously I don't have units, so I have to be really careful on scoring those. He was able to get with his feet. I moved too far forward with one of my Warpwolf Stalkers early because of like where a house was. I sort of just got too overzealous with my placement. I should have been back farther because I'm much happier giving up a Shadowhorn on the feet than a Stalker, especially into dudes, as you might imagine. And he's just whittling away. My stuff is kind of slowly getting killed, little by little. I'm getting as much work out of Synergy as I can to make sure that I'm going in accurate for my attacks and whatnot. Even the Gorax is getting in there, mixing stuff up. The Wild Argus is... actually, the Animus on the Wild Argus was huge because it made sure that the defense was really low to start Synergy. It could get a bunch of kills and stuff like that. So that was all really useful. As the game kind of wound down, one of the things that he did to make sure he get that kill on turn 1 was not... I think he just aimed and shot with the Victor because it was range 20 and I was up the board a long ways. And my Stalker was next to a Shadowhorn, so he could aim and shoot the Shadowhorn, because I cast Fog of War on turn run. He could aim and shoot the Shadowhorn and hit the Stalker, and that was kind of what helped him get that kill, but which he might have anyways, because Doom Reavers are pretty accurate on Vlad's feet. But as a result of that not moving him up, he kind of ended up in a bad position as the game went on, and as it sort of wound through, he got to a point where I was hiding behind this forest with two of my War Beasts, or no, really just the Stalker, to where the Victor was, and he could certainly kill it in melee, but to get there, he's like, oh, I have to trample, and we didn't, and he was a little upset about this, but what he did not do, he didn't announce before he was moving, nor did he measure. There was no announcement, there was no checking whatsoever. I think in his head he thought he had it, but that he was going to trample so that he could attack my Stalker. He could buy an attack boost to hit, and that's going to be enough to kill the Stalker. But he thought he was going to get into the zone, but he didn't say that to me, and the way his turn was going to play out, I thought he was going to kill my Black-Clad Wayfarer, my Shadowhorn that was towing the circle and the rectangle on my right, and the Stalker, and at which point he's going to score the circle zone, and the attrition game is basically lost to me, because I still have a Shadowhorn on the right, and my Gorax, and Kaya, who's like towed both zones, but so I assume he's just trampling to get in on the attrition game. I let him know throughout later in the turn, because he said something, I don't really know what it was, or he hinted at something. I was like, this isn't in the zone, and he felt like I should have mentioned that sooner. I talked with a few other people just to sort of check my make sure that I felt like I was playing correctly, and they said, no, you are not obligated to do that. He didn't announce that. If that was his intent, you should have measured before moving the model, etc. So I know he was upset about it. It's unfortunate that happened, but as it was, he did not kill the Shadowhorn that was in the others, or one of the two models. There was a Wayfarer and a Shadowhorn. He didn't kill one of them, so that zone stayed contested. He did kill the Stalker, but he didn't get into my zone. Vlad was in his zone, so he did score that time, but I had killed the objective before that. And so now, and he had his Bad Santa, I can't never remember the name of that, Manowar Covenant, no, whatever, the big wizard Manowar thing that gives Grey Lord that gives out focus was in the zone, but it's like a 10-16 with 5 boxes, and I still have a Shadowhorn that I can put Primal on. No, it was the other Shadowhorn, it was the Black-Claw that died. So I punched the Victor with my body and spirit out Shadowhorn to get a synergy. I primaled my goat, and I'm figuring I'm going to just, I'm Matt 7-9, and he's a 10, so I could have beat back to make sure he was out instead of primaled, I suppose, but I felt like I can probably just kill him. And if I do that, then I have a beast in his zone, Kai's still in my other zone, and I was going to be able to score. That was going to be enough points, basically, that I win the game. So I sort of talked with him, I know, and looked at it. I think the way the game was going, because he only had Victor, and Victor couldn't be in both of his rectangles, I was actually in a weird way, in a weird position where I was going to be able to basically, like, he couldn't score both rectangles, basically, and because of that, I think that the way the game was going to play out, I probably would have been able to eke out a win that way, especially because I think I'm able to clear his other circle, possibly. If he doesn't have a unit that can score that zone, I definitely get it. So one of the things in both of those games that, just a real quick hit on, that I felt was missing, that is of some concern with this list, is I have virtually no guns. So in a few of those cases, like not killing that Gobber or being able to reach out and get a model, I was missing out on being able to do that. Like Kaya had to be kind of forward to make some of those plays happen. So that's something certainly to consider with this list. I've played a couple other Kaya lists with like Purebloods and Winter Arcuses, and they didn't really have that problem, but then of course they also didn't have the hard-hitting power. So be that as it may. Anyways, so I win this round on Scenario. I go on to the final round and face Dan Wasmer. We've played several times. He's still playing Crucible Guard. I look at his lists, and his Sylvester list is full of Rocketmen and other nonsense, and I sort of feel like, well, Kruger is just going to windmill slam that game. And I look at his lock list, and I'm like, well, his jacks are all like 11, 18, 11, 20 with the shield, I guess. And then the Liberators, whatever the arc node is, are actually kind of a pain in the base. They're functionally like 15, 19s. But so I think if he goes with, I probably could have dropped Kaya knowing that he's going to go with Locke, especially later I learned he'd played against a local up there who does play a variation on that Kruger list. But I felt like I could win with the Kruger list, so I did that. This was on Mirage. I went second. Transfers definitely caused me some issues early on. So does the Alchemist, but then I basically feeded, kill all of them, get some damage out there. Not all the Transfers, but all the Alchemists. Ravager started doing work. Getrix killed Jack early on, but in a way that he was pretty safe positionally. I made sure to try to contest. Dan got up pretty far ahead on points at one point, but as the game progressed, he started losing out on attrition because the Ravagers actually are able to kill armor 18 jacks, and especially because of how his positioning had to work for some charges, I'm able to start like getting in the back. Vengeance attacks are kind of chipping a little bit of damage here and there. He kills most of the Ravagers on my right. A hut shot comes in, so that's the thing. Eventually I go contest his flag with my Bloodweavers. I'm able to kill his objective with my blood. Oh, that's really late in the game that happened. It basically just comes down to I'm sort of just like, you know, even against defense 15 with the Liberators, I'm able to like chip damage in, and I'm just slowly kind of whittling away. There's one turn where it's really imperative to me that I need to be able to kill a Liberator and a Toro. No, it was the other one. One of the Suppressor. And so that's the turn Getrix got primaled. He did do that. He killed both of them. He frenzied into something of his after we fixed the weird game state issue we had. Basically, as this game goes on, I do lose most of my Ravagers on the left, but I actually end up tabling his entire army except for Locke and winning on scenario, which was something that made me really happy. I think at one point that the game was pretty winnable for Dan. He did some cool stuff like jamming me up. He was able to... the transfers are so ridiculous to play against. And honestly, anything you can do to kill them early, you should do, especially if you have a mostly infantry army. Yeah, anyways, so I did those things and was able to win, and that was 4-0, and I won the tournament. So it was a great time. As always, thanks to the folks who run the events up there. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. So if you have any questions about how these games were played, let me know. I would love to chat about it. And obviously, until, catch me on social media, and we'll talk, share the video, like the channel.